Good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Those of you that have been taking class with me for a while, I'm so happy that you could join me today. And those of you that are new to taking class with me, it's great that you could try the classes. I always say this in any of the classes that I teach, not everything is actually healthy for everyone. So you can adapt everything that we're doing today. You can completely avoid things if need be. Most of the things that I use are really applicable for most people, and that's why I do use them. But again, I know very well that people have pre-existing conditions, so again, you don't have to do everything. I'm going to start the class in a meditative position, but this could very well be in a seated position in a chair. It's great to sit on the floor, but if it's very uncomfortable, then it's actually counterproductive to sit quietly. It's not going to be a long sit, but this is something that I've thought of is if we're continuing to be in lockdown, I'm thinking of just going live in the morning. I practice every morning, so I'm thinking of possibly having a live broadcast of just like meditation and some gentle practice to start the day, and that would be in early morning, probably like 6:30 or 7 Eastern time. So to sit, I really prefer a virasana, but that could be something different for you. I've always had flat feet, so this is a very good position for flat feet people. So I'm going to sit on 2 blocks in between my feet. So I place the blocks in between the feet, and by placing them in between the feet, I can hug my feet into the blocks, and the knees don't have to be together. They could be apart, right? They don't have to be together. It's just you refer to a yoga book. Most likely they're going to be teaching you how to keep the legs together or even strapping the legs together. I may actually want to pull the skin back so that it's not so constricting within the knee. And maybe you're not comfortable closing the eyes. You can certainly meditate with your eyes open. It's just by closing the eyes, it just makes it a little bit easier to be more centered and inward. For me, I love closing my eyes, but I know very well that some people need to just keep the eyes open. So if I were to keep my eyes open, I would focus on something in front of me, and it's just a basic body scan. So I'm sitting upright, trying to get level through the hips. So I'm just gonna teach you basically some asana, and then you can be quiet for a little bit. And in sitting, you can use a little bit of strength initially, but if you look at some Eastern methods of meditation, posture isn't always super structured. It's not always ideal. So focus on your breath, and in focusing on your breath going in and out, you can kind of see the rhythm. And by seeing the rhythm of your breathing, you can kind of tune into like where you're at emotionally. So it's good to get grounded. It's very good to set an intention before practicing, and then always remembering that as you practice. So it just gets you that much more centered and directing towards your objectives or your goals. So as you're breathing in and out, think of moving in many different directions, forward and back, laterally, always trying to find what's above you. And again, like meditation it's more difficult in some ways than being physical in any discipline, whether it be yoga or any form of training. So just take a few deep breaths. Notice where the weight sits. So if you lean to one side and we spent more time in this, that side would fall asleep. And if you are leaning forward, it's going to affect your lower back or your neck. So just a couple deep breaths here, and then as you're breathing in and out, feed yourself, feed your body within the position, especially the more difficult poses today. and say you're in a good space sitting, you could obviously sit longer. I'm gonna come off the blocks and I'm gonna bring my legs forward, and as I bring my legs forward into a straight position, I'm just gonna be circling my feet. So I'm just moving the feet around, circling the feet. Again, if you were sitting in a chair, you could be circling the feet. If you were on your back, you could be circling your feet. And then circle in the opposite direction. So just moving the feet around, getting the blood flow to move. In sitting, if that's relatively new to you and you're sitting like I am, you may notice that there's more redness to one foot possibly for you. Some people don't see that for a number of reasons, but you want to kind of know that that's the side that you lean into, right? So I'm just going to bring the legs into a bent position. I'm going to have my hands turned out. I'm going to push through the hands and lift through the chest. And if I can, I'm going to elevate the hips up. And then as I elevate the hips, the legs don't have to be in a perfect 90-degree angle. They could be in closer or further away. But I'm just moving the weight around a little bit. So this is for the wrists, for the shoulders. Maybe you can't do this. It would be perfectly fine if you came down and up. That's, say you're like, wow, I'm tired. I couldn't hold that, right? You could lift yourself up again. But this is really to strengthen the glutes and the hamstrings, and it'll help you with, standing, walking, your more physical postures. You could take the head back in space, and like I said, maybe you're down already. And then you can bring the head forward and you can bring the hips down, and then just come into a Baddha Konasana position, but have the feet wider. So it's a variation of Baddha Konasana. So I'm gonna have my feet turned out. I'm gonna squeeze my legs into my arms. And then by squeezing my legs into my arms, I'm getting more space into the hips. So I'm pushing, I'm lifting up, and I'm just basically blocking the action in my legs to help with that. And then I'm gonna bring my feet together, and my feet together, I'm gonna push the knees apart. Now I'm lifting my hips up off the floor. You don't have to do that. But in pushing the feet together, I'm really trying to move my limbs further away from my pelvis, right? Then I'm gonna bring the hips back down, have the hands down, have the knees bent. Again, just lift through the chest. You don't have to be up with the hips. I'm gonna lift the hips up again. And as I lift the hips up, side to side is much easier than a forward and back motion. But if you wanted to move forward, then it's getting more into the front of the shoulder, right? And you don't have to be moving like I am. You could just be static, but moving, you can really kind of see where your tendencies are as far as where you bring your weight. You could take the head back, and then you could bring the head forward, and you can bring the hips down, and then just wrap the arms around the legs, and then this time push the knees out into the arms. So as you push out, I could look up, I can look over my shoulders. Just notice where your head doesn't move, and that really can tell you where your spine may not necessarily move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my strap. You don't have a strap, you could grab your foot or use like a towel or a t-shirt or something like that. I'm just going to strap the right foot. I'm going to take the right leg forward in space. Now, if I have tight hamstrings, I would bend the knee. I'm still stretching out my leg, but I could extend it forward. I could lean back in space. And this could be rhythmic. It doesn't have to be, it's great to hold things statically, but I know very well that doesn't always work for people. So I really believe in moving in and out of poses can be very healthy for people. You could bend the right knee, and then you could take it off the foot, and you can take it over the left foot. You can take it up. Now, if I'm flexing my foot, it's more of a stretch. If I'm pointing the foot, it's still very good. They're both good to use. I'm trying to keep my leg up as best that I can without the strap. So I'm trying to pull it in, but I could be here. So say you don't want to put that kind of pressure on your back. You can still stretch out your legs. It doesn't have, up is not necessarily better. It's just, it's a bigger stretch. And then you could bring that down. Now, go back to having the knees bent, push through the hands, lift the hips up. So I say this in my classes, it really builds, this position builds into a side plank. So if you're like, oh, I never want to do a side plank again, this can really help. So this is straight arm strength, very good for stability. And it's very similar to a handstand. So it's a basic position, but it can be very great in building up to, you know, something more intermediate or advanced. You could take the head back again, and then bring the head forward, and then bring the hips down. Bring the feet together again, push the knees apart, elevate the hips. When you're standing, sitting, and you don't have to do this all the time, but think of lifting through the crown. And it's something that we can all, you know, benefit in. And then lower the hips, and then I'm gonna take the strap one more time, and I'm gonna make it big enough that I can fit my body inside this loop. And a lot of people like this, but not everybody does. So if that's the case, just strap the foot. So my strap is just underneath my shoulder blades. I'm gonna extend the leg forward. And when I extend it forward, you know, I'm more of a flex position. So I'm using my body weight to stretch out the back of my leg. The hands could be down. You know, that's partially why I like this variation, is that so you don't want to pull, so you really want a longer hold. Like you could hold this, you know, start with 30 seconds to a minute, but then you could certainly work up to a couple of minutes. And then you could gradually make the strap shorter and shorter, and then there's more leverage, right? So I could bring the leg down. You can take it off the foot and then place it over the opposite foot, and then taking the left leg forward, you know, I can lean back in space. I can take the arms down, you know, lifting the chest, and your breathing is a really big part of yoga. So we're just generally stretching, and you know, the breath is really feeding the relaxation of the leg, you know, especially the exhale. And so you're like, wow, I feel so at peace after a yoga class, right? A lot of it has to do with the exhalations, you know, and that could be the meditation, is just focusing on the exhale. So I'm going to bring the leg down. Now you don't have to do this, but if you want to bring both feet into the loop, I can stretch it forward or push it forward, you know, just stretch out the legs. You can have the hands off the floor. When the hands are down, you can really produce better posture. That's why I like it. But say you want to work on your balance, you could, you know, take the hands off the floor. Bend the knees. If I'm done with this, I'm going to take the strap off my feet, and then I'm going to come into an all four position. So once you come down onto your hands and your knees, have the hands just underneath the shoulders and round through the back. Look forward, look up. You can back bend. You can exhale, you can round the spine. Try to keep the weight in the front of the hands. Back bend again, lift the chin, lift the chest, grip the floor with your fingertips. Exhale, round. The rounding is really what you need in plank. So make it a little bit longer and come up into a plank pose. So lift the knees up off the floor, hollow out through the front of the body, reach back through the heels of the feet, right? And then we're going to slowly lower all the way to the floor. Take the arms into a cactus position and lift the arms up and away from the floor. I'm just turning my head just so that you can hear me, but just taking the arms up and out, and then bringing them down, and then inhale, taking them up. It's a great position. Now you could make fists with your hands if you need it. You can bring yourself down with the arms. One more time, we'll come up, and then we'll bring it down. Now come up onto the elbows, the forearms, and send your chest forward. And move the weight around in your pelvis so that you can kind of actually see what needs to be leveraged. I say this all the time. My left QL, psoas, is much tighter on my left side. So I don't do this all the time, but I'm leaning into my left because that's really what needs more manipulation for me. Now look over the left shoulder. Breathe in, breathe out. I really believe in this low back bend. And then it leads to like deeper back bends, right? You can look over the right shoulder. Deep breathing. And then you can bring yourself forward and say, you're like, wow, I feel pretty good. You know, you could do cobra, you could do up dog, right? I'm gonna come down all the way. I'm gonna bring the hands underneath the shoulders. So grip the floor and Try to bring the ribs away from the floor before you even come up. You could come to all fours, right? But press straight up press through the hands, lift yourself up, and work on, this type of position. You have good strength. You could be on the tops of the feet, which, makes it more difficult. Obviously, you don't have to do that. You can tuck the toes. You can go back up into a down dog. Go all the way back with the hips. Right, pull the belly, pull the ribs in, and pedal the legs if you need to. So it's great if the legs are straight. It's just not everybody can do that right away. Think I'm pulling your arms forward. So you're trying to get longer through the upper body. Come back into a plank again. Reach back with the heels. So I say this all the time. If I'm really working the pose, it's difficult even if you have good strength. If I'm not that you want to get tired in this, but if I'm not really challenging my physicality, then I'm just holding the pose in my joints, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. I'd work at getting stronger. Go back up into a down dog, and then walk your feet forward to the middle of your mat, and walk your hands back towards your feet. I say this all the time. If I'm not forward bending today, you bring your elbows above your knees, and you could be looking forward. It's great to forward bend, but and yoga is predominantly forward bend practice, but you don't have to, right? You could be standing already. If I am folding forward, I could be changing my directions. I'm just gonna, if I'm all the way forward and down, and I'm ready to come up, you could roll yourself to standing, roll yourself up, and then just kind of see where the weight sits in the feet. So take a couple deep breaths, extend through the crown, right? See which eye you're using more. It's very common, like if I got a wall in front of me, I can see very well if I'm a little off center. You can turn so that you're more ready for eventually a lateral position. But just take the arms forward and come up on the toes and lower to the height of your hips. So I'm up on the toes, I'm lifting my heels. Just a basic variation of a chair pose, right? So I'm lifting through the heels. You can bring yourself back up. So stay up on the toes. Just gonna do that one more time. You can lower the hips. But all this time, I'm really trying to grow through the crown of the head. I'm really trying to improve my posture in all the positions that I'm taking, right? And then bring yourself back up and bring your arms down. Now take your feet out a little bit wider than, say, your shoulders. Turn your feet out. You can make your hands in a fist. And then bend the knees and push the knees and the thighs apart. So, it's good to sit lower, but because it's a shorter practice, I consider an hour a short practice. But you really want to develop good strength, kind of see the weight. How you have your feet really, it depends. So if my knees hurt, don't get caught up in like your feet should do this or your knees shouldn't hurt at all. Right? So again, I can sit lower, I can widen the thighs. You can bring yourself back up. So just step the feet back together for a couple breaths. Again, see where the weight sits in the feet. So a lot of times people are all the way forward in the toes and it shows in the back, right? It shows in rounding. So, and sometimes people are way far forward with the hips. So you got to kind of see why the weight's in the toes or why it's in the heels to help you with your posture, right? Then take the feet out nice and wide. And with the feet out wide, you can turn the right foot out to the right. Take the arms out. This is always a great position to just reset. So just get nice and tall. And then bend the right knee. And then as you bend the right knee, really get wide through the thighs. I say this all the time. If you turn to your right and it's easy, you may actually need to be turning your head to the left, turning your upper body to the left. But, someone's taking a photo of you, they say that's wrong or whatever, but you got to kind of know what your tendencies are. So lift from the pubic bone, drop through the tail. Right, bring the right forearm on the right thigh, You could get lower, of course, right? Take the left arm up to the ceiling. So use your legs, just don't sit in the pose. Right? Get stronger. You can take the left arm overhead. Again, I have very long arms. More natural for me to get lower, to be honest. And in some ways, it's actually easier because I'm using more flexibility. So it really depends on what you need today. Come back into a warrior two. Right, feet off the front leg and then have the right leg straight, bring the arms down. Turn the right foot in, turn the left foot to the left. Back foot's at 45. Lift the arms, lift up through the thighs, bend the left knee and move the thighs apart. So as you move the thighs apart, lift up through the pubic bone. These are, again, basic positions, but as you get more flexible, in my opinion, these types of positions are better because you don't want to just be flexible. You really want to develop good strength if you're not using other forms of training in getting stronger, right? So if only yoga is your means of practice, which can be all that you may need or want. So lift up through the thighs, lift up through the top of the head, bring the abdomen and the ribs in, and then bring the left forearm on the left thigh. Now I can take it forward, I can take it straight up to the ceiling. So turn through the belly, turn through the ribs. If you take it forward overhead, it's an external rotation, but I'm happy if you're up on the leg, or I'd be happy if you were in a triangle or half moon. These are all great positions. So turn the upper body to the right, take a couple deep breaths, push the thighs apart, bring yourself back up into a warrior two. Wide thighs, and then have the left leg straight. Turn the left foot in. Just step the feet back in. Some people like to hop in. You can hop back in, and then as you're in, try to balance yourself out. Nice and tall. I'm gonna go right into a triangle, right? Take the feet apart, have the feet a little bit wider than the shoulders. I change the stances of my triangle, like whether it's daily or weekly or monthly. Change your stances, right? Turn your right foot out, take the arms wide, reach to the right. As you reach out to the right, you can grab the block, the shin, take the left arm up. And again, don't get into a habitual way of doing the pose. So if you're always low, you're probably gonna benefit being higher, right? And then as you're higher, you can most certainly get lower. Like there's a lot of great variations in getting lower. Your hand on the inside or the outside. It really depends on what I want to leverage. And then bring yourself back up. Turn the right foot in, turn the left foot out. Take the arms wide, reach out to the left. Grab the left shin. Again, there's nothing wrong with getting low if that's better for you. But you could also be up on the leg and, But let's say I really struggled in getting lower, because can be the case for people. Is try to get lower, but don't just get stuck, right? You could come up and down almost like not that we're pulsing, right? But you could move up and out of that. So turn, get longer through the top of the head, turn through the ribs, get really strong through the legs, and then inhale, bring yourself back up. Bring yourself back up. Just step the feet back together. Take your left leg up off the floor. So I'm going to step back just so that maybe I'm getting cut off. So just take the left foot up off the floor. I could pull it into the chest. I say this often, really important to keep your hips strong. So use your hands if you need to, of course. Use a wall. Take it out to the left. This is all hip specific. It's great, again, if you have support, if you need it. Bring it forward, bring it down. Take the right leg up and in. Again, use the hand or hands. Really drive through the left foot. And then you can take the right leg out to the right. And I'm really trying to, again, get more extension. Not that I'm back bending. Just want to extend up through the top of the head. You can take it forward. You can bring it down. We're going to come to the top of the mat. Inhale, take the arms overhead. Pull forward into a forward fold if you can. Bring the hands down. Step the right foot back so the left foot is forward. And just kind of move the weight around. See where you hold your weight. If you have a mirror or something like that, you can see your alignment or see how long you are. Again, it's not bad to be short, it's just over time you get longer and longer. It's a lot like doing the splits. Take the left arm up to the ceiling so the left arm is high. So turn the upper body towards the top hand. Bring the left hand down and then step the right foot forward. Step the left foot back, and then with the left foot back, just try to make it longer, wider, get really good extension through the front of the body. Take the right arm up to the ceiling. So the right arm is high and the left hand is low. So you're moving forward in space as you're, getting polarity through the pose. And then bring the right hand down and then step the left foot forward. So just take the hands a little bit to the left side, change the angle. Take the hands to the right. And bring the hands back into the middle. Step the left foot back. Bring the left heel into the floor. And come up into a warrior one on the right side. So you could be in a lunge, of course, right? So lift through the pubic bone. And for me, I have a bit of scoliosis, so really not forcing myself into a greater twist to the right, but that's what I really need. So I'm working that. So say I want to work it more, I could straighten the right leg out, I can turn, right? Then I can go back into bending the right leg, right? And I'm going to come forward if I can into a warrior three. You could use a wall. You could keep working on warrior one. So come forward. As you come forward, lift through the front of your body, squeeze the shoulders in, right? I'm going to come back up to standing if I can. I'm going to try to pull my knee into my chest just like we did earlier. I'm going to keep it in, then bring it down. I'm going to come back into a warrior three. So when you come forward into a warrior three, if I want more flexibility in the legs, I would intermediately bring my hands down into the floor. So just bring the hands down, step the left foot back into a lunge, bring the back knee down the floor, and make it longer. So if I really struggled in the back knee, put a block in front of the left knee so that the thigh is on the block, and then there's less pressure in the knee. So take the hands over to the left side, look high over the left shoulder. So lift the head, lift the chest. Take a couple deep breaths here. Bring the hands to the inside of the foot and move the weight around, especially if you struggle with this. Because it's just like, it feels like you're stuck. And it's all soft tissue. A majority of it you can change. It's just a matter of, it's not going to be easy. You really have to, it's uncomfortable. And if you can, we're going to come up on top of your right thigh. So you're up in an upright position. Now there's many degrees to this. So maybe you're up on blocks. Maybe you're up on your thigh. I'm wanting to leverage the hips. I am moving down and forward. If I want to leverage the upper body, I may actually want to be more 90. Not sitting. It really, again, it just depends on where you're at. If you can, take the hands behind the head. Move the head back in space. Lift through the chest. Lift through the rib cage. Front of the body's strong in all of these positions. Come back to neutral. Bring the hands down. Take the back knee up off the floor. Take the right arm up to the ceiling again. So the right arm is high. The left hand is low. Take 2 deep breaths here. Maybe you need longer. Bring the right hand down and then step the left foot forward. Just take the hands to the left side if you can. Change the angle. Take the hands to the right. Abdomen is in. I'm trying to move my thighs to my upper body and then back into the middle. And then step the right foot back into a warrior one on the left side. So come up into an overhead position. So when you come up, lift the pubic bone up, drop through the tail. I really need more of that. That's why I cue that so much, but a lot of women need it as well. So as you're in an upright position, drive through the left foot. A short stance is Ashtanga yoga, and a long stance is more of an Iyengar approach. They're both healthy. And then go back to a straight leg position. Drive through the feet. Maybe you need a little bit more turn of the left, of the torso to the left. Then go back into the left leg being bent. If I'm looking up, more of a classic approach. Could be healthy for you. And then come forward if you can into a warrior three. So bounce on the left foot. As you bounce on the left foot, because the heel is so narrow, it's a big reason why we're unstable. Use a wall if you need it. I'm going to bring myself back up. I'm going to pull my right leg into my chest with or without my hands. And I'm just kind of doing this just to keep the balance a little bit tricky for you. And then come forward. And again, if I really want more flexibility, I'd bring the hands down. And something you can do, right? Bring the hands down and then lightly step the right foot back. And with the right foot back, you could bring the back knee down the floor. Just kind of move the weight around. Take the hands over to the right side. Look high over the right shoulder. Lift the head, lift the chest. Deep, deep breathing. Again, the abdomen is engaged. And that's what's stretching out your back. Take the hands back into the middle. And you could stay low or get low, right? It's a matter of opinion what you should be doing, really. Bring yourself back up into an upright position. And when you're upright, just kind of say, it's like, wow, so hard on my hip. You know, you can move around. You know, that's, when you see a photograph of a yoga practitioner, that's just 1 second. You know, they may not be holding it as long as you may think. Now you can take the hands behind the head. You can move the head back in space. You know, keep rising, keep moving up. And as you keep going up in space, it's just easier to go back, right? Bring the hands down. When you bring the hands down, take the back knee off the floor and take the left arm up to the ceiling. So the left arm is high, right hand is low. Turn through the upper body and bring the left hand down and step the right foot all the way forward. Now I'm going to separate my feet about the width of my shoulders. I'm going to grab my elbows. I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to sit into a squat. Now the heels can be elevated, you know. You could be sitting on blocks. But a good practice is squatting throughout the day. That's something you can work on. And just time yourself. So maybe 10 seconds is all that you can do. Do a couple minutes of that, you know, throughout the day. Start with that, and then you can work towards longer holds the second week or the third week. Just kind of see if it's irritating in the knee, right? Come into a forward fold, hold all the way forward. Move the weight around, that's what you need. Bring the hands down and we're going to step back into a plank. So step back, reach back through the heels, pull through the front of your body, and go back up into a down dog. So pull all the way back up into a down dog. I'm going to swing forward and through into an up dog. And then pull back up into a down dog. One more time, I'll come forward, I'll come through. And then I'll go back into a down dog. And then just come down on the knees and sit back into a child's pose. So sit back, have the arms beside the knees. If that's good for you, you could hold on feet. The closer you bring your legs together, the more spine related it is. But those of you that can't be, you know, compressing or rounding, you could be in like hips over knees and reaching the arms forward if you didn't know. It's an excellent position. So bring yourself back up. When you come back up, have the hands just underneath the shoulders and try to keep the weight in the hands. And just let the chest drop in between the arms and then push through the hands. And then let it go. And then push. Right, again, this is a lot like a handstand. You can lower. And then, you know, but that's a big reason why people have difficulties with push-ups and whatnot, right? It's the stability in the shoulder. So I'm going to do a side plank. I'm going to lift the knees up off the floor. I'm going to spin my heels to the left and take my right arm up to the ceiling. So drive through the fingertips, the knuckles, turn the upper body towards the top arm. This is really deceptively good for the inner thigh, which is a weak area. Bring the right hand down Spin the heels to the right side, take the left arm up. Say one hand's weak. When it starts to get a little not so good for yourself, come out. And then you can do it later, or you could just, shorter hold. So keep getting wider through the chest, through the shoulders, and then bring the left hand down, and you could bring the knees down and come back into a virasana. So sit back on a block. I'm sitting a little bit lower than I did in the meditation. So it's just, just to get a little more leverage into the front of the body. So those of you that struggle with lunging, get more familiar with the tissues of your thighs and of your hips and of your abdomen. And you can see very well why it's difficult for you to be in those positions, and a lot of good things you could be doing. So take the arms into a cactus position and make the hands into a fist. So strong hands, and then just take the hands forward, height of the shoulders or possibly lower, internal rotation is most likely going to be easier on one side. And the same thing with external rotation. Take the arms back up to an external rotation. You can bring it forward. Yeah, I really believe in band work and a little bit of external weight initially for the mobility of the shoulders and the mobility of the hips. And if you ever have any questions about that, right, you can reach out to me and I can help you as best that I can. You can take the arms back into a cactus position and then take the arms back down. Now, if you can, interlace the fingers, press the hands forward, and then inhale, take the arms up overhead. So it's very easy to just kind of sway. So you want to keep the ribs in. Notice which fingers don't want to stay together. And that's what you want to keep together, right? Take a couple deep breaths. Press through the feet. Keep the heels from falling out if they have the tendency, mind you. You could bring the hands forward. You can bring the arms down. Now change the height. Sit higher, sit lower, come out of it. These are all, again, things that you may need, right? I'm going to do a bit of camel today, which I really believe in, and I'm going to do it asymmetrically. Majority of your spine rotates, doesn't extend. And there's some extension, but a majority of it rotates. And that's why I prefer rotational back bends than just straight back for most people, right? You could, go straight back, of course, too, right? I'm going to come up on to my knees. And when I come up on my knees, again, don't get caught up in grabbing the feet. That's like so down the list in terms of importance for me. But I'm looking to the left foot. I have very long arms, could touch the feet. So it's almost like I'm using more my elbow as a guide because I know very well that's easy. And then bring yourself back up, look to the right foot, and stay up. Don't just go back, right? That's where people hurt themselves. You want to go up rather than back. I'm referring to my elbow again, not so much than my hand. I'm trying to lift up. So we're going to come back up. We're going to rotate to the left, and this is all spinal twisting, right? But you want to be driving through the tailbone. Bring yourself back up. Rotate to the right. Keep lifting through the pubic bone. Keep lifting through the chest. Feel what's actually being stretched out. And then bring yourself back up. And you can sit back on the block. Now, if you can, just try to sit a little lower. Again, if it's just like, no, sit high. And that's all I'm really doing is, especially when I'm practicing on my own, is some things I may not be doing because I want to be practicing yoga for the rest of my life, or I want to stay active for the rest of my life as best that I can. I'm lifting, really lifting up. And you could spend more time in this. I'm going to come out. I'm going to bring my legs forward in space, and then I'm going to go back to circling the feet. So circle to the feet. Right, circle the feet the opposite direction. Right, you could point the feet, you could flex the feet, you could point, you could flex. Now if you can, just bring the soles of the feet together. Try to get the feet together, and they may not, Maybe you twisted your ankle at some point in your life. Big reason why you might not be able to get your feet together. Go back to having the knees bent and lift the hips up off the floor. Widen the shoulders. Again, if you couldn't be on your hands, so much good things you could be doing for your hips. Forward bending in various ways. Elevate the pelvis. Really get more width into the shoulders, but it shouldn't hurt. You know, and you gotta incrementally add more effort. You could take the head back. You could bring the head forward and down. And then just bring the hips down, but try to bring them a little bit more forward towards your feet. Just a little bit. And some people really have a hard time with this. It hurts their elbow. You don't have to do it, but just bring the hips up and move them forward towards the feet. Just a bit. And then take them back. Bring them forward. Widen the shoulders, widen your upper back. Bring your hips back in space. Bring it forward one last time. And so you're like, oh, I really like this. You know, bring the hips more forward, bring the legs more forward. But again, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. You want to gradually do something like this. And then bring the hips back. And then as you bring the hips back, just pull the legs into the chest, wrap the arms around the legs, push the knees out of the arms, elevate the chest. Right? And then bring the legs forward. Now, I can just pull my knees into my chest, right? That's something I can do to strengthen my abdomen. I could also straighten the legs forward. Now these are pretty tough, but it's good to know how to use these muscles because again, it's really what's gonna help with forward bending and squatting and just hip compression. So you may need to bend your knees to take them up, something like this. But if I can, I'm gonna keep the legs straight. I'm gonna pull in and bring them down. I'm gonna bring them in and bring them down. I'm doing them kind of slow. And like I've mentioned before in other classes, you don't really have to do a high rep then. If you're doing it very meticulously, bring the legs down. One more time, take them up and bring them down. Bring the hands back one more time, bring the hips up, press through the hands. Again, this is really to strengthen your hands, your wrists, your shoulders. And then, then you can start to do more progressive yoga if that's something that you desire. So this is a lot of like wrist work, even though it's not like just isolated mobility. Take the head back and then bring the head forward, bring the hips down. Have both knees bent and take your right foot outside your left hip and step your left foot over your right knee. Now I'm gonna take my right arm across. And this is really just to expose more of the right hip. So I'm taking it across, and you should feel a sizable stretch through the hip, the capsule of the hip. Of pretty good flexibility, so it's not as obvious for me, but I know very well for people, it can be a lot. So let the head hang down if that's uncomfortable for you. You could certainly be twisting. That's what eventually we're going to do. But this could be like way more effective than just the classic position. Not that that's bad, right? Now you could take your head up, your upper body, and try to fit my right armpit to my left knee. And I'm gonna lift up. And now binding's great, it looks great. You could certainly thread the leg through or grab the knee or foot. So I'm lifting myself up away from the floor. And then you could turn forward, you could release the arm and the leg, and then have, just gonna change sides so you can see better. So then have the left foot outside the right foot is over the left knee now. And then you could twist to the right here. And you might have to get creative with a set of blocks or a chair to support your head. So it's just, everybody's anatomy is different, so that's, well, I can't say it's just like everybody should do it this way. You could wrap around, very good for your back. Stretch out your back, expose your back. It's very hip related, hip exposure. Deep, deep breathing. And like I said, maybe this is better than the classic position. You could hold this. You could fit the left armpit to the right knee or close to it. And then you could lift yourself up And you know, it's good to wrap the arm because then it just, you don't really have to use much strength. But I'd also add, that's why I did that lifting of the legs. You want to use what's below the abdomen in lifting yourself up and twisting. So take a couple deep breaths here. You could turn forward, you could release the arm and the leg. Go back to having the feet, we started something like this in the beginning of class. Have your feet as wide as your knees. Squeeze your legs into your arms. So those of you that really struggle in sitting on the floor, mix this in a little bit more throughout the week. It doesn't have to be every day, but you know, that's why it is so difficult for people to meditate and seated position. Is it's just this tightness in the hips, and it's hard to sit. So it's a big reason why I'm doing this. And then go back to having the feet together, knees wide. Push the right hand in the thigh, resist that. Push into the left thigh with the left hand, resist that. So again, you want strong adductors, which are pretty weak for most people. Bring the hands back and then push the thighs apart. Get nice and tall, get nice and upright. Right? And then we'll bring the legs back up, and then we do a little bit of fish. So the fish pose, you may want the block on the lowest level. If you find blocks too hard, use a bolster or a pillow. And then the second block will be for the head. So and have the strap close to you, because eventually we'll use it on your back. So when you go back over the block sits just underneath the shoulder blades. And when it sits just underneath the shoulder blades, this can already be like, whoa, this is too much of a back bend. You could, eventually put something underneath you, like a blanket or a pillow, right? And then when you go back, you can use it, the second block, you can put it back behind the head, and legs could be bent, they could be straight out. Say you like just kind of floating, you could support the head with the hands, and then just get more and more weight into the pelvis. And again, it's very easy to just go where you already go. You want to lean into areas that, because I know very well that I twist a certain degree. So I'm going back in space over time, I'm extending. And like I said, the thoracic really only extends so much. So you want to get more and more space through other areas. Obviously we want that extension, but we don't want to we want to continue to open up through the hip flexors and the psoas in order to have better posture, and which will really help in turn with your breathing. That's a big part of why you want to improve your posture. Now you could spend more time in this. So you're like, oh, I love this, I want to do it more. Certainly do that. Now when I come up, I could bring my chin to my chest. I wouldn't sit up. I'd bend my knees. Then I'd roll to my right or my left, whichever I had more space to. And then just line your side. And so you're still in it. You're like loving it. Of course, that's great. And then take the block that was behind your back, and then just lie back on your back. Have your hands over your elbows. Lift through your hips. Ground out through the shoulders. Really, really heavy through the shoulders. Lift through the pelvis. So you want to do more static or more supported bridge. Of course you could do that, There's really I would never get really caught up in sequencing, like set sequences, because that could very well injure you. Then bring the hips down, and then when you bring the hips down, what I'm going to do is grab the strap, and I'll place it around my right foot, and then with the strap around the foot, I could flex the foot, I could point the foot, I could come up with my head, my shoulders, so you like holding the leg as opposed to using the strap. Of course you can do that. It's just, I know very well not everybody can grab the foot or the leg. The leg is obviously an option, but the strap can make a big difference in the way that you move. Now come down with the head and the shoulders, hold the strap with the left hand, and then cross the right leg over the left. And I had said this earlier about back bending. The rotation in the spine is really a big portion of the spine. So you want it to be able to move like this. And as it twists, it's very good for your shoulders, your neck. Take it back up. Take the left leg up into the strap or in the hands. It really depends on the day. Like I'll use the strap, but a lot of times I use my hands too. So maybe that works better for you. So lift up. As you lift up, you can lean back. You can fall back in space. Just think that the hips are lower than your head and your shoulders. And you could stay here, right? You could hold the strap with the right hand. You could cross it over. If you want more of a stretch, reach higher to the foot. And the pelvis, the left leg is over the right. Not excessively, but it is. And then you get more into the post capsule of the pelvis and the hips. And inhale, take the left leg up. And you could do more strap work if you need it. You could take the strap off the foot. Just gonna go back into a bridge, just to counter. So push through the heels, lift through the hips. Think I'm pulling your sacrum forward towards your feet. Lift through the pubic bone. Right? And then you can bring your hips down. Right? You could extend your legs forward. You can relax on your back. I'll just give you a guided relaxation on your back. But again, I say this all the time. If I had an important meeting and maybe I'm not relaxing, maybe I really need to be sharp after class for something, you could certainly just be sitting in meditation. But if you're in a relaxed position, you could make your hands into fists. You could really strengthen the hands, and then you can relax them. As you relax on your back, just feel the floor and how you relate to the floor. Bringing the weight into your hips, alternating the weight in the hips. You can kind of see, like, if you're a little bit skewed. You're a right-handed person, you're probably better off doing like a little bit of a side bend to your left, and then the whole right side gets more spacious. And then it might actually even crack, right? And then you can relax. And then I'm a big believer in supporting knees. I'm a big believer in putting something underneath your lower back, especially if you have some herniations. And the same thing goes with the cervical. You get some herniations in your cervical. It's okay to have the head supported on something, but you really need the leverage in the cervical spine, which is the neck. So get weighted, get heavy. My life is so much better from practicing, and it's great to fit it in the morning, and then everything just kind of is in synchronicity. Relax your throat, your jaw, all the muscles of your face, your eyes, your forehead, your scalp. And then as you get more settled in, even if you're in a small space, especially when you exhale, you can kind of feel how the body becomes heavier, but it also expands, right? It gets a little bit more wider and longer, and you just being on a good floor is so good for your structure, your spine, your skeletal system. most certainly continue to lie on your back, right? That's obviously an option. But if you're ready, you could move your fingers, you could move your toes, you could swallow a couple times, and you can pull the knees into the chest. That's if you want to stretch more, and again, that's if you will be sitting up. So in pulling the legs in, take your time. If I'm sitting up, I could roll to either side. Be careful of your neck when you do sit up. And you could sit on a higher surface. I say this often, it's great if you only have one block or, some big books to sit on. But you want to make them wide enough, especially when you do like longer seated positions, especially if you're sitting cross-legged. And then as you're sitting, just kind of see how the pelvis sits. So a lot of times people are rounded. They call it sacrum sitting in the PT world. So you want to be more forward. I'm a person that overly extends, especially when I stand. So I want the weight to be more neutral, so it's level. But just look over the right shoulder. Think there's a string at the top of the head. It's pulling you up. Look to the left. You can look center. Now you could bring the head down. You could lift it up. As you lift it up, full extension, and then you could just be neutral. I have so much gratitude for so many things. I hope you do as well. You don't have to bring the hands together, but that's a gesture of thanks. He is my beautiful son. I hope you had a great class. If you like the class and you'd like to donate, my Venmo is Jon Witt Yoga, and my PayPal is Jon Witt Yoga as well. If you can't afford it, just keep taking the classes. I love that you can continue to take the classes. Reach out to me if you have any questions or you want a different type of experience. I'd love to design the classes for what you need. All my classes are on YouTube. It's Jon Witt. All right. Have a great Sunday, everyone. Namaste.
Namaste. Was it great, Mommy?